Congratulations on Shumei Germany's anniversary celebration in 2020. Thank you very much for having me as a guest speaker for this occasion. When we are asked what kind of faith is Shumei, we can simply respond that the essence of Shumei's faith is gratitude and love for others. Today, I'd like to talk about the importance of gratitude and altruism. First, I'd like to speak about gratitude. Meishu-sama said, "You are what you think. Gratitude breeds gratitude. Discontent spawns discontent. This is the truth. For a grateful heart rises straight to God, while a discontented heart finds the evil spirits of hell. Because of this, people whose hearts are ever grateful are naturally fortunate and happy, but people who are discontented or who grumble are unfortunate and miserable. This is a fact." In the Omoto teachings, there is the following saying, "Be joyful and joy will come unto you." These are words of truth and wisdom. In 2003, the decoding of the human genome genetic code was completed. As a result of that, is there any improvement in the understanding of life? According to Dr. Kazuo Murakami, a biochemist and geneticist, the answer is no. Today, the new approach is that the perspective of the big picture is needed in order to understand the mystery of life and living things, instead of just observing substances individually at the micro level. The way to see it overall includes focusing on interactions and relationships. Dr. Bruce Lipton, an American developmental biologist, said, "A gene is just a blueprint for an organism, and consciousness and the environment control the cell, changing the behavior of gene. Genes cannot rewrite the information themselves, but they control the living body by turning the switch on and off by external stimuli such as consciousness and the environment." End quote. Dr. Kazuo Murakami has been at the forefront of genetic research for more than 40 years, and he touched on the mystery of life. Mr. Murakami said, "Genes that are related to happiness must be latent in everyone's genes. Just turn on that gene. The difference in how genes work depends on one's state of mind and may be related to the fact that most human genes are turned off. Among the vast amount of genetic information, only 5% of them seem to be working now. We do not know what the other 95% could do. Among these unknown genes, I believe that there are genes that are turned on and off by one's state of mind. So how do we work with genes to be happy and experience well-being? It is by having a positive attitude in our daily life. My hypothesis is that the lively, excited way of life is turning on the genes that are necessary for success in life and feeling happy. Your positive thinking will wake up the genes." End quote. I believe that there is a same sense of gratitude that the root of positive thinking. Meishu-sama said, "Gratitude breeds gratitude." I think gratitude is the birthplace of positive thinking. I'd like to introduce Mr. Masato Saitakes' story from Shumei's Kagoshima Center. Mr. Saitake became a member of Shumei in April 4, 1985. In 2009, he was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's disease. He was frightened by the symptoms because he lost more and more of his memory every day. Many times he had the urge to commit suicide. Finally, it became impossible for him to go to work, and he decided to take an extended leave. At that time, he received guidance from Keiko Okada sensei, who said, "Time is given to us by God. You are physically fine, so do your best for God's work." He decided to follow her advice. His assistant sensei, Kyoko Fukuzumi, and her husband, Toshiyuki, welcomed Masato to stay at their home and helped keep him busy every day with God's work, such as Jore gatherings and natural agriculture activities. After about 7 months, he started to enjoy communicating with people more. He noticed that he was able to remember the participants and the meaning of the group discussion held the previous day. His doctor told him that it was impossible to develop new memory. However, the progression of his disease seemed to stop, and he was able to return to work again. After that, he continued not only his job at his company, but also the work for God for the next 4 years. However, his symptoms got worse again in April 2013. Once again, thankfully, Mr. and Mrs. Fukuzumi welcomed him to stay at their home and to work for God. Mr. Saitake really appreciated both of them. Kaicho Sensei and Tamao Sensei were invited to join the anniversary of the Kagoshima Center in September of that year. Mr. Saitake decided to quit his job of 32 years in order to concentrate entirely on the preparation, and he was able to serve as Kaicho Sensei and Tamao Sensei's driver that year. After 6 months, his condition got much better. One day, there was a job offer for him from a new company, and he got it. He was hired as the head of a fresh fish department, the same position as his last job. However, at this new job, he noticed the employees often yelled at one another. "Fast! Don't be slow! What are you doing?" He was so surprised, and he wondered that there was such a workplace in this day of age. In order to improve the situation at his home after daily morning and evening sampai, he read Meishu-sama's teaching, "You are what you think," followed by words of "Thank you, Meishu-sama," 100 times. He started to go to work earlier than anyone and chant the Amatsu Norito. Then he recited "Thank you, Meishu-sama" 100 times at the workplace every day. In addition, he talked about the importance of gratitude at meetings every morning, and he expressed his gratitude to others individually. About 6 months after, he realized the environment at the workplace had changed, and that he could hear appreciative words here and there. Moreover, sales had increased gradually, and his store became the top of all stores in terms of sales growth. When the president of his company came to his store, he asked him why the store was experiencing so much growth and success. He answered, "It is because of gratitude." Hearing his answer, the president asked him to manage all 5 of the stores in that area. In the meetings at every store, he talked about how important the words of appreciation, thank you, are. The atmosphere in the workplace became more actively positive, and the 5 stores became profitable within 6 months. Ordinarily, it takes 5 or 6 years to make one store profitable. It was a miracle that all stores changed so quickly. He learned that gratitude changes people and makes miracles. One interesting story that illustrates Mr. Saitakes' experience is when a Shume member from Kagoshima Center went shopping at his store. She heard a store clerk muttering something and wondered what he was saying. So she got closer and found that the clerk was saying, thank you, many times. Mr. Saitake was glad to hear that gratitude was spreading among employees. Even when we know the importance of gratitude, sometimes it is difficult to be grateful. Sometimes we can hardly control our emotions with our own will. However, we can control our words. Even if we may not be feeling grateful in our heart, we can say thank you. By saying words of gratitude, the spirit of words will help our emotion to follow the meaning of the words. So it's helpful to say thank you, no matter what kind of situation we are faced with. Along with gratitude, now I'd like to talk about the second of 2 topics of today, altruism. Meishu-sama said in his teaching about myself, from my earliest days, I have always liked pleasing others, to the extent that it could be called my favorite pastime. I am constantly thinking of how others can be made happy and fortunate. I want everything and everybody to be at peace, happy, and fortunate. This is my nature. This way of thinking constitutes one underlying reason that I am a man of happiness and good fortune. It is because of this that I say, if you do not make others happy, you can never be happy yourself. What direction will society take in the post-pandemic world? The mood of self-restraint is holding back not only the economy, but also the feeling of people. When self-restraint is gradually lifted, if we just return to the old normal way of life, we will have learned nothing from this coronavirus. In today's world, more and more people travel across borders from country to country. The transmission of unknown infectious disease has become a big issue for all human beings across national and ethnic groups, and cannot be dealt with without a system of global cooperation. To build an international cooperation system, we must collect and analyze information and provide the results of each and every country, then deliver medical resources where they are needed. Currently, it seems that the governments of each country are fully self-occupied, dealing mostly with their own issues. However, unless all nations collaborate beyond borders, nations, and ideologies, they won't be able to overcome this crisis. Even if human beings manage to overcome this current coronavirus pandemic, unless we change our behavior 180 degrees, another unknown wonder will hit humanity again. French economic and social theorist Dr. Jacques Attali said, The countries that best withstood the pandemic are those countries that best understand the self-interest of altruism and had to put it into practice. The countries who best withstood the current pandemic are South Korea, Taiwan, and Vietnam. These countries understood that it is by protecting others that we protect ourselves. They understood that it is in our interest to wear a mask to protect others, as they also protect us by wearing one too. That it is in our interest not to infect our neighbor by keeping our distance, so that we are not infected. They understood that it is in our interest to know if our neighbor is infected, so that we can keep our distance. In general, it is in our interest to do everything that we can so that others have the resources to avoid getting ill, and as a result, they will not infect us or overwhelm our healthcare facilities in case we need it for ourselves. End quote. Dr. Attari's quote points to the essence of altruism, placing the interests of others above and beyond our own, which paradoxically turns out to be the best thing we can do for ourselves. I think many of you may have heard some version of the allegory of the long spoons. It is a parable that illustrates the difference between heaven and hell by the differing means by which were people forced to eat a bowl of stew using very long spoons. In my culture in Japan, the story is told using long chopsticks to eat a bowl of rice. This allegory has become part of folklore not only in Jewish and Buddhist, but also many other cultures and religions such as Hindu, Middle Eastern, and Christian. In both heaven and hell, people are given same food and utensils. But the utensils are too long to serve oneself. The only difference between the two worlds of heaven and hell is people's attitude. In hell, people are starving and fighting each other because they cannot feed themselves. In heaven, people are happily and gratefully using their long utensils to feed one another. In the face of a serious crisis, we must return to the essence of altruism, which is human beings living for others. We have to learn and understand that cooperation is more valuable than competition, and that we are one species sharing one planet. The shift to the ideal of altruism is a key to human survival. Dr. Murakami said, "The work of genes is completely impossible within our own will and power, and it is beyond the work of humans. I call this great work something great. I call this something great instead of calling it God or Buddha, because even people who think that there is no God or Buddha are still alive because of the work of this something great. We humans are able to survive thanks to the energy of the sun, water, and the earth, along with many other living things. There is no one who lives on their own. By thinking only of science and technology, or other way of thinking such as the law of the jungles, survival of the fittest, and each man for himself. By following this kind of thinking, we will surely perish. In the coming era, the idea of living in gratitude to something great will be needed all over the world." End quote. To conclude, let's think of what we can do now. The answers are all in Meishu-sama's philosophy. First, to increase your own immunity. Practice using and thinking thoughts, words, and deeds of gratitude. Also, and practice of natural agriculture so that you can connect with the earth and can also grow and eat healthy food. Then, to encourage people around you and help those in the most need. Share the healing light of Jore in altruistic and socially responsible ways. Thank you all very much.